So in previous videos, we've discussed that alkane chains or hydrocarbon chains can be functionalized by putting on heteroatoms. And some examples we've seen is putting on a chlorine onto an alkane, right? So this 2-chloropropane is a functionalized alkane. So in this video, what we're going to focus on is identifying 8 really common functional groups that you need to be familiar with. Okay, so let's start with an alcohol. So an alcohol is an OH group attached to a hydrocarbon chain. Okay, so if we have a hydrocarbon chain and you have an OH group attached to it, the compound is an alcohol. A related compound is an amine, which replaces this oxygen with a nitrogen. So if you have an NH2 group, this compound is an amine. Also related to an alcohol is an ether. So an ether is an alcohol with this hydrogen replaced by carbons. So we still have our oxygen within the hydrocarbon chain, but now it's replaced by at least one carbon. So ethers are hydrocarbon chains with an oxygen built into the chain. Here's one you've probably heard of before, carboxylic acids. So a carboxylic acid is a double bonded oxygen and a single bonded oxygen attached to one carbon, right? So this group right here is the carboxylic acid functional group. Okay? In previous chemistry classes, you've probably seen many examples of these, right? So acetic acid is a carboxylic acid. Related to a carboxylic acid is an ester. So just like the relationship between an alcohol and an ether, an ester is a carboxylic acid, but we have this hydrogen replaced by a carbon chain. So we still have this double bond oxygen attached to another oxygen, but now we're linked up with one carbon or more. So this linkage here is the ester linkage. Related to an ester is an amide. Okay, so an amide has this oxygen replaced by a nitrogen. So we still have this, but now we have an NH2. Or an amide could also be this nitrogen linked up with more carbons here. Okay, so these are both examples of amides. Having this double bond oxygen with the nitrogen attached is the amide part of it. And we see that in both of these. Okay, so 2 more. And these are also fairly related. Okay, so a ketone is a hydrocarbon chain with this double bond of oxygen built into it. Alright, so a ketone has this, we call it a carbonyl, present within our hydrocarbon chain. So only this double bond oxygen, a single carbonyl within a hydrocarbon chain, is called a ketone. If we remove these carbons and replace them with a hydrogen, so we're left with a carbonyl with this hydrogen on the end, so we have a terminal carbonyl, this is called an aldehyde. So this part of the molecule is the aldehyde. We have a terminal carbonyl. Okay, so these are our 8 functional groups. Aldehyde, we have a carbonyl at the end of the carbon chain. Ketone, we have the carbonyl within the carbon chain. An amide has a carbonyl linked to a nitrogen. An ester has a carbonyl linked to an oxygen, all that's within a carbon chain. The carboxylic acid is related to the ester, but we replace this carbon chain with a hydrogen. An ether is an oxygen built into a hydrocarbon chain. An alcohol is this OH group at the end, and an amine is an NH group at the end. Okay, so becoming comfortable with these common functional groups will allow you to quickly identify them, and as the term goes on, we'll also learn about some of these in more detail and think about how they're what types of chemistry and what types of physical properties these compounds give to hydrocarbon chains.